I'm a fifth-generation Texan, so my roots are in Texas, but my mom and dad, I was born when they were living 90 miles to the west, just into New Mexico in Roosevelt County. So I was born in Roswell, but Lubbock has always been our big town, and we've had family in Arlington and Dallas. So the High Plains, the Llano Estacado is where I've lived and where my people have lived. So yeah, these are my roots, and this is the country I love, and I think I'll always live here. Right now, 3 of the books take place in Colorado, and 3 of the books take place in West Texas. So there's this stretch of land between Trinidad and kind of Amarillo. It's this big wide open area, Clayton, New Mexico, and so Wilder travels that 2 or 3 times throughout the books. But so they're either in the mountains there in southern Colorado, or they're here in Caprock country, Paladera Canyon type country. Basically the same people, outdoors people, tough people, church people, independent people, people that live on the land, live with the land, have that understanding. I don't want the Wilder Good series to be formula fiction, which means chapter 1, somebody dies. Chapter 2, we introduce our protagonist. Chapter 3, we introduce the henchman. Chapter 10, everything gets solved. Not that that can't be successful as well. I'd like every single book to be doing something fresh and something new, and when they stop doing that, maybe I'll quit doing them. That being said, I just kind of wait until the right story happens, and so far for 6, it has happened. So I guess there's not a formula for what each book is going to be about. I guess 6 different stories have just showed up. I teach because for some reason I've always worked with kids, and I like working with kids, and I chose to teach 7th and 8th graders because I think that's kind of a magical age. As soon as you get on the other side of 7th and 8th grade in general terms, you're worried about boys and girls and what you're going to be someday and all these pressures of the real world. But 7th and 8th grade is this magical age at 12 and 13 when you have a very dim perception of the realities of the world, but your imagination still has the chance to be as big as you can make it. And so I think you can really have a big impact at that age. A lot of people choose those great dreams at that age. And I chose to teach 7th and 8th grade. What's your job to do is give us words so we can start filming. We can, hold on, so we can start filming, okay? And you've got to begin to describe things so we can start filming. What is it she sees that really makes her so scared, that makes her say monster instead of Santa Claus? You've got to get into her mind and don't tell us how to feel. You got to show us how you want us to feel. Heavy plot is how the story started. I don't know if I'll do it forever. I have other things I want to do, but before I taught, I worked with voice ranches and children's homes, several places around the country, and I still have a great passion for that work. But that's just working with youth. It's youth who's usually at risk or been through abuse and neglect. But it was teaching. It wasn't teaching in public education, but it was still just teaching. And so I guess I'll probably always do that in some format. Yes, we have some success happening before our eyes. Excellent, excellent work. I feel that way, and I don't think I'm ever going to be a skinny 12-year-old girl. But I understand that that's interesting. I want to hear, why is she so scared of another girl's going to punch her? She just goofy? That's the biggest thing I try to teach my kids, and I try to do myself, is just you got to be willing to put in the time. If you put in the time, usually something good will happen. You have a little kernel of inspiration, and then you got to put in all the work, and hopefully it'll show up. This is the 4th book, and I dedicated it to my dad, and it said, "Who gave me the durable gifts of nature and of books." And so my dad planted those pretty deep in my soul, how great it was to have an outdoor life, cowboying and hunting and fishing in the outdoors, and then also just of books, of reading. And so that carried with me into being an adult. But who turned the corner for me to say, I can do this, I can be a professional at this, was really my relationship with John, and just being able to have a professional who had been doing it for 40 years, who's written, 80, 90 books, to say, well, what is it like to be a writer? And basically, he said, you get your rear up in the morning and you go and work, that it's a job. I'm a writer today because of my mentor and friend, John R. Erickson. The accomplishments of an apprentice are equally the honor of the master, so it is a credit to him that my books are on the shelf. However, John's books take up an entire shelf.
I'm not a very good teacher. I've never taught in a classroom. I don't think that I would want to teach in a classroom, and I'm not sure that I'd want to teach writing. My best is in those books, and my job is not to explain every trick I used or how I reached the level of competence to write them.
Chickens, all I see are chickens.
I haven't really had the patience to bother with students. I live kind of a hermit's life, and I like to be alone. And but I've chosen 3 students, and one is Nathan Dahlstrom, the other is my son Mark Erickson, who's a very gifted writer, and then a young lady named Nikki Georgakakis, who works for me. And they are not a waste of my time. I'm very jealous with my time. And we communicate on a regular basis. We discuss topics that come up. We read each other's work sometimes, and I'm glad to be the teacher of those 3.
This makes a really nice habitat and a pretty place for all kinds of birds and for people. And we spend a lot of time out here camping out and stuff, but someday we hope to live out here. We've had it for 6 years now. It's 160, it's a quarter section. The people who had it before us had it for 100 years. They were a pioneer family, 4 brothers. And before them, the Comanches had it. So it's a neat place, but these berms are all blowout from, it was cotton farmed for probably 40, 50 years. And so Dust Bowl, and hence this sandy ground should never have been cotton ground, so it blew out where all the fence lines were. But it makes for us now a nice little bowl where we're totally secluded. The goal would be to come out here and write full time and just go turn into a crazy hermit. That's the goal for my life. It's just to write and come out here. These are cowpen daisies, but they are magnificent right now. In a lot of different writing manuals, you'll hear a line where an author who's accomplished says something like, before you decide to sit down and write, you need to go out and live. You need to get some experiences under your belt. And so I think that's why a lot of people get in MFA programs or in graduate school and they want to push their first book out or first set of poems. And they're not very good or they all sound the same because they haven't lived very much. And I think getting out in the world and maybe not becoming an expert in something, but trying and failing and actually living life, keeping a marriage together, raising children, getting fired from a job, losing a job, having your house burned down. All those things are the grist of, I think, where great literature comes from. And so it doesn't mean you can't write. I want my 7th and 8th graders to write, but they're learning the craft. They're not ready to make great art yet, probably. But once you get out and live life a little bit and know some things, then that becomes your mill that you grind up, and hopefully art comes out of that. Whether you become a deep sea diver or a hunter in Africa or a missionary in Peru or whatever it is you choose to do, I think that's where the great stories will arise. And you can't rush it. There's a gestation period, a compost heap that you have to throw things into before the good stuff comes up. Butterflies? There's a Danny Sosie. What I want to put deep in their soul, I think, is that we have a creator would be the first thing, and then second would be the creation. And so my kids don't have cell phones. We watch almost no TV, but we have all of this. And so I hope that 30, 40 years from now when they're raising their kids, those values will come out. It's a much different world than when I was raised. We didn't have to fight against nonstop video games and screens, but now they do. Wherever you go to school, wherever your friends are. And so that's a huge part of my parenting and what I want them to know. And certainly that's part of the Wilder Good books, that we have all of this. And why aren't we using it? You know, is this little bitty tiny thing? Is that really better than everything out here? There was an old iPhone commercial that I've hated for a long time. It had a little kid camping out in the backyard, and he had his dog. He was camping out, and there was a fire. And then he pulls out the iPad, and the throaty voice comes on and says, "There's never been anything like this." And that's just a lie. It's a lie made to sell these things. We've always had this. It's just we're being lazy. We're not telling people about it. We're not showing people about it. So I certainly hope the Wilder Good books will do that, and I certainly want to reflect that in how I'm raising my kids. Hopefully what you write comes out of your life, not just some abstract thing you're doing to make money or to sell something, but it's a piece of how you live. Now I may end up just getting by at making art and writing books for the next 30 years, but I'd like to think my goal is to do something really, really great. Do you see all those seeds?
Yes.
Those are mesquite beans. Mesquite beans are sweet in the fall. A lot of things eat them. That's how plants spread around.
Why do you throw that?
But that's God's design, because then those seeds become new plants. So God designed it that way. Which it, yeah. Yeah.